Hello, welcome back from lunch and welcome to Speedruns, where we are going to hear 5 concepts in 5 minutes. They get 5 minutes each, so don't worry, it's not that crazy, but it's still pretty crazy. So let's get right into it because we don't have much time. First up is Chloe Turner talking about grants.
Hi. Give me 1 second and get this happening. Do I need to check. To get the slides? There we go, beautiful. Yes, grants, okay. Are we starting? Cool. Hello. I'm Chloe, I'm from Creative Victoria. I would like to do a speed acknowledgement real quick of the land that we are on. It is stolen land of the Kulin Nation, so I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present and future. Now, getting into it, I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of information that you can find on the Creative Victoria website. Essentially, there are a bunch of grant programs that we run. The key ones for you guys would be Creators Fund, which is deep dive researching, Music Works, which is contemporary music projects, and then there's also another kind of project fund. What I wanted to do is go through some hot tips. So, if I can see the timer, which I can't, but that's okay. Hot tip number 1, ask questions. So it's literally my job at Creative Victoria and my colleagues' job to pick up the phone and help you through these processes. So there's this pool of money there by the state government for you to access to do cool shit, and we're employed to help you get it. So never hesitate. It's not going to be calling other government services where you're on hold for ages. Just call us, you'll speak to me or one of my colleagues and you'll be able to ask all your questions and make sure you're not about to waste your time with an application and find it's really irrelevant. Second hot tip, tailor it to the program you're applying for. So state government, Creative Victoria would have different aims to the grants by APRA. They'd have different aims to the grants by Australia Council, local government, etc. So make sure that you're putting a project together or an idea that's actually specific to the grant you're applying for. Don't do a copy-paste job because it's obvious, and the people assessing the grants always tell copy-paste jobs and it's kind of a waste of your time. So make sure it's really tailored to the aims and the priorities of the program. Read the guidelines, read all the information. Timing. So make sure it's a good time to be applying for your grant. Don't leave it too late. Don't do it 2 years in advance because there might be other projects that are more timely and more urgent that the assessors would want to fund. Don't rush your application. So try and get in your calendar all of the funding dates. In saying that, Creative Victoria don't actually have the next round of funding dates confirmed yet, but that's because it's an election year. But try and get the calendar, the funding calendar, the upcoming grant programs for OzCo, local council, all that kind of stuff into your calendar so you can work on it and leave enough time to get your support information, your budget, your quotes, your confirmation letters and write it and everything. You don't want to be trying to submit it last minute. Which brings me to my next point, draft offline. Your work in tech, it can be temperamental. Our portal for grants is very temperamental. And I definitely don't want you to be spending hours writing your application and then it times out or your computer restarts or something like that. Draft it offline in Google Drive or Word docs so you can share it with your collaborators. Just draft it offline and then copy and paste it into the portal. It'll save you so much heartache. Write plainly and don't assume any knowledge. So there's this myth that grants have to be this whole academic jargony thing. Literally just write dot points. It can be very clear and basic, and you don't want to assume that the people assessing it have any knowledge of your practice or your work. So try and be as clear as possible and as direct as possible with what you want to do, why you want to do it, how it's going to impact you, and whatever the questions are in the application. And proofread. So your collaborator is going to read the application and think it's as clear as day. They're going to be yeah, this is sick. It definitely meets all the questions because they're so deeply involved and embedded in the project. So get someone else that you went to uni with or someone that you meet here today who's not actually involved in the project to read through the application, because they're going to be coming at it with this fresh slate, blank slate, fresh mind that the assessors assessing the grants are going to have. So they'll be able to see if there's any holes, anything's lacking context or anything's missing and stuff like that. And, you know, proofread for grammar, make sure your attachments are labelled right. The amount of times someone has like uploaded a grant, it's been really good, but instead of putting in a budget, they've accidentally put their timeline in twice or something like that. So just like double check, don't leave it to the last minute, proofread it, get it all sorted and be like really organised. How much time do I have?
20 seconds.
Oh, sick, cool.
Are you done?
That's all, I'm done.
Oh!
Thanks everybody.
Hell yeah, in with the gold star. All right, that means I just get to take my sweet time introducing our next speaker. No, but I will let you know in this time that we will have a Q&A at the end as well. So what is it? Say it, Slido, say Slido. Slido! Yeah, that's right, okay. Next up, we have Tamara Weaver, who's going to be talking about feedback.
Hello. How are we doing? Oh my God, so good. Oh, that's me. How exciting. Click. Oh, okay, cool. I'm here today to talk about feedback and what it can do for you. So feedback is so much more than just, hey, this was great, or no, you didn't get the job, which I'm sure is everybody's experience with feedback. Am I right? Yeah, which kind of sucks. And that's generally not what we want, and it's not what we want moving forward. So firstly, I just want to, clicky, cool. Firstly, who is this crazy person talking to us about feedback? So my background is in composition. I've been a composer for 10 years in multimedia and film, TV, dance, and now games. And I've also got a really strong background in education. So I've been teaching at Melbourne Polytechnic and at Box Hill Institute as well. So I have been giving very detailed feedback for a very, very long time. And so I know how important it is, and I know how much of a difference that it can make to the people that are going to be shaping the next generation of our industry. In terms of games, the last game that I worked on was the Legally Blonde game with Playside, which was really fun, and it's really cute. Yeah, so I now work for Playside as a producer for the audio department, which is really fun. Cool, what is feedback? So what it is and what it could be. And I think the people that are here today, we have two types of people. We have the people that are entry level and intermediate level, and we have the leads in our industry at the moment. And I think whoever we are and whatever level or however many years we've been in the industry, we're all always learning. And that's what feedback is all about. Feedback comes from a position of learning, okay? And the biggest thing with feedback is when someone asks me for feedback, it means that they want to learn something. And that's the best, because learning is the best. Yeah? Learning is the best. Okay, it's the only way that we're going to get better, because we all have to accept that we're not always going to know everything. We're just not. And the only way that we can strive to be better in composition, in technical fields, in sound design, in production, in whatever it is that we're going to strive to pursue, it's going to be through feedback. So how can we do that? Well, if we do think something is great and we tell someone, this is great, tell me why you think it's great. Okay, well, I think this is great because the way that you modulated into this key gave me the feeling of exasperation. I'm going to try that in the next thing that I do now. Okay, I thought this was great because the way that you doubled the piano in the octave with the guitar gave me a sense of euphoria, or it really brought out the texture here, or the way that you use the timpani, blah, 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 blah. Okay, being ways, taking the analysis and taking the ways that we listen to things and applying that to the feedback is something that we can do and that we can share with each other. The more that we share and the more community that we have, the better that we're all going to be. Positive and assertive attitudes. Don't be a dick. Okay, it's really important that we create this sense of community and this sense of feedback with positive and assertiveness, okay? So I've always wanted my students to feel like they could do their best work. So if perhaps they were going down a path that wasn't conducive to the project, I could say, how about you try it in this way? Here is an example of that, okay? Not, this isn't working. Try and find ways that you can say it in a positive and concise way. How to receive feedback, again, it goes back to the place of we are always learning and trying to accept the fact that we don't, in fact, always know everything. We will always be learning, and if you find yourself in a place where someone is giving you bad feedback, let me know. No, we're trying to create a community of positive and assertive feedback here. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. When you ask for feedback, it shows people that you want to learn and that you want to improve, and that's always a good thing.
20 seconds.
Thank you. You can always ask me for feedback. I'm always more than happy to give it in a positive and assertive way. Okay, thank you.
Amazing. Everyone has been so good at keeping to time. I'm very, very impressed. All right, next up we have Hugh Wagner talking about virtual instruments.
Ooh, I've never used one of these things before. Okay. Hi, everyone. Ooh, where's my little slide? Do I have to click it, or are you clicking it? Maybe I'll click it. Hey, everyone. My name's Hugh Wagner, and the last time I used PowerPoint, I was 11 years old, so I'm sorry for the way this whole thing looks. But in the next 5 minutes, I want to give you a few tips about how to make virtual instruments, quote-unquote fake instruments, sound more quote-unquote real, or if not real, then at least expressive. Now, I'm not going to tell you, you just have to go out and buy thousands of dollars worth of expensive sample instruments. I won't lie to you, it does help, but you can have every expensive sample library under the sun, and programmed badly, things will still kind of sound like a 90s TV show. But no matter what you've got to work with, these tips should help. By the way, I'm coming really from an orchestral context here, but this is all widely applicable. First things first, phrasing, by which I mean giving a phrase of music a dynamic shape. It might start louder, get softer, get quieter. In Western classical music, a good 75% of the time, depending on context, sort of phrases of music come in waves. They'll start soft, get loud, and then die away. So let's start with this phrase of music played by a free string sound. And you can't hear it. Okay, I'm just going to have to sing to you. So a lot of people... No. Oh, okay. I'll try to go back, play it again. Now that sounds okay, it's a pretty good string sound, but let's give it some phrasing. You can see the curve I give it with the line at the bottom. That's already much better, but let's look at the end there. An orchestral musician usually wouldn't end a phrase by just stopping. They'd usually decrescendo just a little bit more at the end to round off the end of the phrase. And if we have a longer passage of the music, we can do more fun things with phrasing. Like, how does this sound with two waves? Versus one. Okay, so this is a big call, but if you remember one thing from this entire weekend, phrasing. Please consider it in every piece of music you make from now until forever. Okay, next, how to avoid what I call the sucking effect. If you're playing... if I didn't think about that when I wrote this. Okay, if you're playing these things in on a keyboard, it's easy to end up with lots of gaps between chords like this. It's okay if it's what you want, but it's more idiomatic to join them up, so... If you join those up and even overlap them slightly, And next, how to avoid what I call the accordion effect. So this is supposed to be like a string section of like 40 people. They're not all going to get louder and softer at exactly the same time, like if you were playing an accordion. So this is okay. But if I split it up and give each one of those lines a slightly different curve, so the difference there is more subtle, but any of these little 1% you can give it really make a big difference over the course of a whole piece. Now I have a question. In an orchestra of like 100 people on a massive stage, where exactly is the beat? Okay, don't get me wrong, sometimes orchestras play incredibly tightly, but sometimes they play surprisingly loosely in that like a chord might start in one section of the orchestra and then sort of ring round to the other sections. This is actually one of the things that makes orchestral music really special, so please don't just line up everything exactly on the beat by default. So have a listen to this chord. I've programmed it so it's all quite loose. But if I line everything up exactly, to me that loses something expressive. My brain's already going, sounds a bit fake. Okay, just to finish off, an approach to mixing. Pro mixers, people who know what you're doing, please block your ears. But for us mere mortals, when you're using orchestral samples, they're usually made by some pretty talented people. So try not to mess with them too much, trying to get your mix with dynamics and orchestration alone, and only bring out your plugins to correct problems that eventuate. And I'm done! Thank you, everyone.
I think that had a few of what are now my favorite slides of all of High Score 22. Possibly all high scores ever. That was very good. Thank you, Hugh. Next up, we have Aaron Edwards with tutorial videos.
Hello, hello. Awesome. Hi. Okay, so I don't have any fancy slides like you, and I definitely don't have as much of an interesting presence as you, so this is a fun act to follow. But my name's Aaron Edwards. I've got about 16 years in the media industry, making music and sound for varying things from film, games, TV, trailers, library music, and YouTube series. And I'm currently working as the product manager for FMOD. What I wanted to do was actually talk a little bit today about why presenting information in a clear way is so important. And we're doing that under the framework of tutorial videos. So one of the things that we're doing at FMOD is overhauling our tutorial videos, which I'm sure everybody is very pleased to see. Big thanks to Simon for helping me with all the editing for that. But the biggest thing that we've discovered while revamping the entire tutorial system was how important it is to relay information and how important it is to present that information in a clear way, but using certain methods. So, the first thing that I always try to do when I'm conveying information, particularly when it comes to high level and technical stuff, like, you know, anyone that's used FMOD knows that there's some pretty tricky things to get your head around. First port of call, transition timelines, right? There's this little weird TARDIS pocket of time that exists sometimes and then not, and yeah. So, explaining some of those concepts in ways that make sense to the user in light that they can understand, right? So if you're presenting information in a way that is, you know, technical information to somebody that doesn't know technical things, they're not going to understand what the hell's going on, right? So why shouldn't we be trying to present information in a way that our users actually understand what's happening? So it's using metaphors, it's presenting information in a slightly different way, or altering the way that we're putting forward our thoughts so that they make sense in different lights. So in our particular case, we're looking at doing things like presenting information as if it's a door, because that's what a lot of our users are very comfortable with, and obviously FMOD is a little bit similar to door in some ways, so presenting information that way has been really effective so far. Excuse me while I go through my notes. The other really important fact, and this is something that I picked up from teaching at Box Hill, like I think more than half of the panel here today has taught at Box Hill at various points. And the other thing that I found that's really important is making sure that people understand why it's important to be invested in what they're learning. So often a lot of companies, when they try to teach users something, is they will say, this is the thing we can do. Neat. Why do I care? So we really want to try and push, and whenever anybody's making tutorial videos or anything like that, we need to try to push the reason as to why it's important to understand these elements. So again, using our videos as a framework, teaching people why understanding the difference between an event and a sheet is important, or understanding why instruments and the interactions with playhead positions and whatnot, why those things are important to understand technically. Because if they just look at it and go, oh, that's a thing you can do, neat, but you need to understand why that's important. When it comes to the presentation and visuals and pacing, you do exactly what I'm not doing, which is completely improvising in. This is a meta talk, by the way. It's totally not just presented at the last minute. This is an example of what not to do. You agree, right? But when you want to pace any tutorial information or any videos, or when you're trying to do things, and this can be applied to multiple different areas. It could be to do with pitching to a client. It could be to do with presenting information. It could be to do with explaining how you want to set up a certain recording session with instruments. This information of clarity and presentation of information is really applicable across all different aspects. But a really important thing to do is maintain pacing. So especially in videos, if you sit there and if you have a static screen, like this one, for more than roughly 5 to 8 seconds, you really start to notice a really heavy drop-off in terms of viewer attention retention. So one of the things that we're doing is we're making sure that we've got lots of animated motion graphics and little bouncy things going around. And does it add to the video? No, no one cares, but it looks cool. And your brain goes, oh, movement. And now you're back to paying attention again. Whereas if there was nothing there, you'd be sitting there going, oh, okay, there's talking going on, and then you're thinking, wait, I'm kind of hungry. What am I going to have? Oh, I just missed stuff. Damn it. I mean, I do, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just hungry. And then the other aspect is presenting visuals. So we try to spend a lot of time making sure that our color palette and our design choices were accessible, clear, readable.
10 seconds.
I have a lot of visual issues myself with reading things, so it was really important for us to get that right. So definitely whenever you're presenting things, think about how it works when you're speaking. I nearly made it.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is me using what I've just learned to always be moving. Keep your eyes on me. All right, thank you, Aaron. And our last one is going to be Maize Wallin talking about unions.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Yes. All right, I have one slide, so feel free to transition to that one, please. Awesome. So we're an interesting union, Game Workers Australia. We started 4 years ago, and as of May this year, we are now a national trade union. Woo! So now we have a heap of very cool superpowers, legal powers. And often when we learn about unions, we think, oh, I have to be at a huge company, I have to be an employee, I have to know anything about what I'm doing. But we know that the games industry is surveyed to be 50% contractors here. And I know in this room, it's probably more like 99% contractors. And that's why I'm so happy to be here and to be an audio person who co-founded a games union, because it makes so much sense. We have an equal attention to contractors, freelancers and small business as we do to the top end of town, AAA. And the union is a whole massive network. So the whole intention of a union is for workers to get together to talk about what work is. So what are the contracts, what are the conducts, what is relationships, how do I do my tax, what are the legal stuff around IP, big one for us. Scary NDAs, another big one for us as contractors. Compensation and salary rights, all these kinds of things that can be really taboo in the office or on the Slack channel, which is what we're all in now, the other office. But for us, we are a place that we believe a tide lifts all boats kind of thing. It's not a place for competition, but a place for serving all of our commercial and social interests. We all want to make lots of money under capitalism. It's a place to talk about people's experiences working with others, whether there's been union action at a workplace you're considering working at. Sometimes that's a good thing. It means that they've done a whole lot of improvement very quickly. What the latest news and conventions are with music and audio contracts. Every platform is constantly updating how they're going to work with IP. Different publishers have decided that actually they want a cut of your Spotify, which I say charge an admin fee, and then you'll make a profit with that. All of this kind of stuff is things that we have constant feedback on, so we can distribute this because we are seeing contracts every single day. We have the latest up-to-date conventions. We know when, is this normal in games? Yes, unfortunately. Or, no, this is a weird thing, they don't know what they're doing, here's how to fix that. There are a bunch of legal rights that we all have that are systemically hidden or not told to us because they don't know or they don't want us to know. The games industry has only existed during a neoliberalist capital era, so we don't have any tradition around worker rights. We don't know what the hell they are. But we have a heap. And one, for example, one that I really like is in any meeting about the state of your employment, you are entitled to a support person. So it could be you're talking about going from a contractor to an employee. You could be just discussing your rates. You want a new rate. It could be your manager has called you in and refused to tell you what's up. You're allowed to bring someone in. Often that's a union worker. Often it's a lawyer, or it could just be a trusted friend. There's also a bunch of rights that we have whenever someone wants to talk to us about our employment, about what's on the agenda, and when, I'm looking at the time, oh my God. So there's a whole lot of really, really cool rights that you all have that you should be using all the time, but we don't know them. And I'm learning them. Games is the only industry I've worked in. It's been almost 12 years now. I've only worked in this, and we're all learning together. GWA, Game Workers Australia, have hosted successful small business workshops, including learning about transitioning into a company, which a lot of us will do, or into a co-op, which some of us will do. Workshops on tax, IP, OH&S, media training, which is super important as well. As contractors, we're forced to sign terrifying NDAs. We, as a union, have access to hugely discounted professional liability insurance, which if you're not a company, you need that shit. Get on it now. As well as other insurances like travel insurance, which have paid for my union fees 6 times in 1 month. So all good. Heap of discounts on any other things. And then on, is that 0 seconds? Okay, I'm going to do a very quick list. Very easily, you can call up your union anytime to discuss workplace legal advice, contract reviews, resume reviews, LinkedIn reviews, job interview coaching, career coaching, performance review training, pay negotiation training, career progression planning, probation planning, financial advice, personalised salary comparison, or if you just want to chat. I'll see you all on Tuesday evening for our networking event. Go to gameworkers.com.au or gameworkersau on Twitter.
Thank you. I'm going to get everyone up now because we've got a little bit of a Q&A. We might have to share mics between us a touch. except mine, because I'm Brittany. Don't yell into my mic, it's too close to my face. And also, I feel like the takeaway from that one, Maize, was if you're feeling like a bit of a work baby and you don't know what to do in any kind of corporate situation, that's what they're there for.
Yes, please. Please,
All right.
business mum.
So, looking at Slido, we have this one for Chloe. What makes an amazing grant?
Okay, cool. What makes an amazing grant? I would say time is not on now. So a clear, concise application that's just like thought through, well planned. Like you can literally use dot points. Like when I say clear, I just mean like summarized, not like rambly. And curated support material. So you can put support material with your application, like you can put budgets, timelines, support letters, examples of your work, links, SoundCloud, whatever. And so don't put in too much, but put in just enough. So just like curate it to strengthen the application. Don't just chuck it in for the sake of chucking it in.
Amazing. Hugh, when do you add phrasing? All the time, important moments, or just solos?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think the only answer I can give is listen to the music that you love and pay attention to what they do, and then try and take inspiration from that. Because sometimes, yeah, it's just straight there, no phrasing sometimes, but most of the time there's some sort of phrasing going on. Yeah.
Could I add a
Yes, please.
from a worker point of view, scope. So start with the phrasing that is the most important, and then if you have enough time, continue with the rest of it.
I like that.
Oh,
I'll try that.
yeah. Maize, have you had any big studios here push back against employees joining a union?
Yes, of course.
Spicy.
But they legally can't ask you if you have joined a union. You don't have to tell them. You can lie if they ask you. Yep.
It's like that thing where if there's an undercover cop, they don't have to tell you if they're a cop. That's not the law. They can lie. All right.
Can they?
Yeah, I think so. I
That's
don't think they have to
fucked.
tell you that they're a cop. Because
That's
why would
awful.
they? It would undermine the entire... This is a different conversation.
Okay.
Anyway, Tamara, how do you prioritize what to focus on when giving feedback?
I guess I just asked the person first. I asked them, what is it that you're looking to get out of this? And that was something that Josie brought up in their talk, which was really great. You know, what is it that you're looking to get out of this and where do you want to go?
I think that's a great point as well, because sometimes when people ask for feedback, they don't really actually want feedback. So kind of clarifying that is good as well. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say as well, I didn't mention this in my thing, but when you were doing your thing, I remembered, you can ask grant bodies for feedback. If you've submitted previous applications, you can call us up and be like, hey, I applied in November, can you tell me what I did wrong? And then I'll look it up and I'll tell you what you did wrong. So yeah, ask for feedback.
Amazing.
And I'll tell you the feedback. Probably not as well as you will.
Hugh, any tips for mixing cinematic orchestra style music? Where should the strings sit in the mix? What about percussion, brass? How much is too much? That's a big question.
I'm going to push that one over to Aaron.
Sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Mixing tips for cinematic orchestra style music.
Cool. Okay. So I think the first thing to think about with cinematic doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be hyper compressed and super loud. So you still need to be looking at things like orchestral balance. You still need to be looking at things like acoustic bleed and like balancing mic positions between different sample libraries and stage positioning. All of that stuff, even if it is an epic orchestra, that's still going to be limited to hell and played back at a cinema at way too loud luffs. That it still needs to sound natural. By using that as a starting point, that'll give you a really good base to work with. From then you can start making the minor adjustments that you musically need. But I think a lot of people think that mixing is just literally stacking the volumes that you want to hear. But the other key thing that I think would be important to think about is orchestration is technically mixing, and mixing is technically orchestration, just like implementation is technically both as well. So I think all three of those elements should be things that should be being thought about all the time.
I love how everyone's answering these questions in a quick fire manner when we still have, like, we've got good time now and everyone's yeah, and then you do this and we're done. Yeah.
That's just my natural state.
Beautiful.
The adrenaline, that's all.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Tamara, what is the best/most helpful feedback that you've received? In fact, I want to ask everyone that, because I think that one's a good one in general, but we'll start with Tamara. Can you come back to me? Yeah. Who else wants to jump in?
I think I've got one. I was thinking about this recently with a certain bad thread that was, of course, going around Twitter. And I think I've been unlucky enough to have some, you know, in two parts of the music industry, some literally abusive feedback and some of the most wonderful, uplifting feedback. And at times I've been a teacher of singing, not of composition. And then at times I've been a student and I've had lots of colleagues and people at lots of different levels. And just if there's one baseline, it's always been the positive, constructive, uplifting feedback that has gotten people to the next level. And the feedback that's kind of, and I'm not saying you just need to only give good feedback, but you know, find a constructive to it, because the feedback that's negative and pushes people down, I mean, maybe it can get someone from here to here, and maybe it can be effective, maybe it might be good feedback, but the negative consequences, especially in the long term, can be horrific.
And I guess also it's good to remember that sometimes people just aren't going to like what you do or like you, and their feedback is going to be irrelevant to your growth because it's not in the interest of your growth, it's in the interest of getting you to go away because they don't like you. So.
I think on that topic as well, sorry, just on that thought process, it's not always just that they want you to go away, which that is sometimes, definitely. But it might just be that your personal approach or your personal perspective is not what they're looking for in that particular project. It doesn't mean that you've failed as a composer or as a creative. It just means that you weren't the right fit for that particular project. That took me way too long to learn when I was freelancing. So please, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that maybe you weren't the right fit. And I think people that are in, you know, higher up positions need to learn how to make that distinction when they're giving feedback, to be able to say, it's, you know, this is what you could have done better, this is what felt like was a shortcoming, or this is something that, you know, it just wasn't working for our project.
I was just going to say 100% to that. Like, if you're applying for a grant and you get an unsuccessful application, it doesn't mean that, like, we hate your work. It just means that it's really competitive and we could only fund a certain percentage and we ran out of money. And so you ask for feedback for things that you can do to strengthen the application, to push you into that higher percentage, hopefully next time. But it's definitely, you know, unsuccessful applications aren't a comment on your work personally. They're usually just like competition and, yeah, not being the right fit or those kinds of things. So try not to take it personally. Yeah.
I have 3 examples.
Ooh.
Is that okay?
We gave you a minute to think and you're like, 3.
Yeah.
Go for it, please.
So I'm a classically trained flautist, and I did like a lot of that. And I had like a hardcore flute teacher who was like punishing.
Was it basically what's his name from Whiplash?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, God.
But it was like I got really good, but then I had a really good flute teacher who I learnt a lot from, but she would be like, if I didn't get it right, she would be like, that's okay, this is the part we did wrong. Or like she would never say wrong, she would just like circle it and then write relax above it. And it's like, I just need to relax, because she's like, you know how to do it. I know that you can do it. You just need to relax when you get there. And I was like, that's really good feedback. Okay, cool. So that was a really good thing. And so I always took that on. And then when I got to uni, I had this great teacher. His name was Dr. Warren Burt. And for people that know who that is, there were so many students that he had. And he had an assessment that he wrote, right, where every single week you had to ask him a question in his aesthetics class. And he would answer it. And that was the assessment. You just had to question something about music and sound aesthetically. And he would give you like a page answer. What the fuck? That was just like, that's when I was like, I want to be like this. This is sick. What? This is crazy. And people would be like, this assignment is boring. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, this is amazing that someone is doing this for us. Like, And this person was like in their 70s who learnt with Philip Glass and stuff, like insane. And I was like, I want to be like this. And then the other feedback is like learning that your inner critic can also be your friend and not your imposter. So like sometimes like you're working, you can also be like, shut up, or, okay, I get that this might not be the best idea, but we're going to table that and we're going to come back to that in 3 days. This might be a bad idea, but I want to try it. So can you just be quiet? Yeah.
So I think all of us in the room probably have just a few trusted people who we go to feedback. And one of mine is the composer that I work with at Woolfire, where I just do sound and implementation. And he sends me his albums or his OSTs and stuff for feedback, and I go through and give, very technical, specific feedback. I think that this bit doesn't work, or this bit at 400 hertz needs to be turned down, or whatever. And then I can do the same to him. I can send him an album, or I can send him a soundscape or whatever, and trust him to just to give like what is objective for his ears. This is what I think. And I think that being a teacher, we're quite good at that. But also I've had colleagues who have sent me, a Google form for feedback for their album and stuff, which is super effective, but they've told me that, I can see that you're used to giving feedback because everyone else just said all my tracks were great. But I was like, all right, the energy here doesn't quite fit the energy there or whatever. And actually broken it down and analysed it. And of course it's all objective because it's all subjective because we're all musicians and we have different ears and all of that kind of thing. And so we all know that you can take or leave whatever, it's just opinions. But that just being really systematic about it, this track, I think these 10 things or less or whatever. And he doesn't always have time. And I have a couple of other people who I go to for exactly the same thing. But that process, I think, when you're amongst peers and you don't really, you should always take everyone's feedback with a grain of salt, even if they are higher up than you. But that kind of stuff.
Beautiful. Hugh, what's the best orchestral instrument pack you would recommend? That costs thousands of dollars.
Oh my God. I couldn't recommend one because I don't know whoever's asking your needs or your budget. But when you're buying these incredibly expensive things, you know how they always come up with this thing, this is going to change the world and your life. So don't even read that. Just go to the audio examples, try and avoid all the marketing. And it's just understandable why some of those companies market so hard, because this is really expensive stuff and really quite niche in a sense. But yeah, just try and listen to all those examples, compare, contrast, and don't try and get caught up in the marketing, or some guy on this forum said this was the best, or some guy said this was terrible. Yeah, use your ears.
Are you asking us to trust ourselves?
Oh, sorry.
Ew.
One more pro tip with that. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean you mean it. You need it.
Or if it's on sale 9 months out of the year, maybe the sale price is the actual price, and $30 on sale, down from $550. It's probably actually worth $30.
I've seen that a whole 8 times in the last week.
Yeah.
To add on that one, the demos on their site are really, really beautiful and everything, but go and look at YouTube and look at people trying to use it, because phrasing is great, but it's also really tedious, and do you have to do that for every instrument? Figure that out.
Yeah, wait till somebody else spends the money and then just watch their YouTube video. That's what I do with almost everything in life.
There will always be another sale.
Yes.
Always.
Thank you, everyone, and I'll let you head off stage now.